What's up, y'all? Welcome back to TRU's Podcast with your host, True Car. Today, I wanted to talk about healing and how I think it's important to understand when it comes to healing. Healing is not about changing other people. Healing is not about making other people love you or care about you or make the relationship with you and them better. I think it's important to understand healing is about changing your perspective and your emotional reaction to what has happened to you, or your emotional reaction to that connection, or whatever the case may be. I think it's important to understand when it comes to healing and trying to heal connections. Sometimes healing connections doesn't mean reconnecting with people in order to heal that connection. Sometimes what healing looks like is walking away from that connection and feeling through your emotions and allowing yourself to feel your emotions for that person and forgiving them and forgiving yourself for not seeing your own worth, or forgiving yourself for staying in that connection for so long, or whatever the case may be, or accepting what you didn't deserve, or whatever the case may be. And I think that's important to understand when it comes to healing, because a lot of the time some people that are also scarred or wounded or hurt and has never chosen themselves or has never seen their own worth, and not even coming from a judgmental place, but just an understanding place of those people that are telling you to get back or connect back with the people that have hurt you or harmed you. They might not understand where you are coming from because they never understood that you can take your power back and your energy back and your peace of mind back by understanding to walk away and still understanding to forgive those people. Because I also think it's important to understand to forgive, because the amount of power you are giving other people by holding on to grudges and by holding on to the pain and the hurt, it is to a point that you might as well accept them back into your life, and you might as well allow them to still be in your life, and you might as well continue to still be their doormat, or you might as well continue to still be a victim or their victim. And I think that's important to understand, because if you go through your day and you have a person on your mind that's always triggering you, or you're always thinking about a person when that person is not even in your vicinity, or you're always thinking about a person or what they have done to you, and nobody is even talking about that person, or whatever the case may be, I think it's important to understand that there is something there that needs to be healed, that needs to be felt intentionally in order to heal it and release it, and actually be able to be at peace with that connection or with whatever happened to you in those situations. Because in my personal opinion, a peace of mind is the most valuable and wealthiest, abundant thing that you can have. Because when you don't have a peace of mind and your mind is everywhere but focused on the present moment, it puts you in a position to where you are not able to genuinely be grateful. You're not able to genuinely live and be in a space that's healthy for you. And I think it's important to understand when it comes to your mental and emotional health, that is hand in hand. So if you are always neglecting your emotions, or always pushing your emotions to the side, or always pushing what has happened to you to the side, at some point it's going to come up in your mental health, whether that be depression, whether that be anxiety, whether that be your connection with yourself or with others becoming a toxic environment for you. I think it's important to understand when it comes to healing, the first step is understanding that something is toxic. And if you're always pushing things to the side and acting as if everything is okay, or acting oblivious or naive to what a person is doing to you, or how something is actually hurting you, then you will hold on to a baggage or a weight that you don't even realize exists within you. And then you'll realize someday that you have this heaviness on you that you don't know where it came from. And that's why I think it's important to do check-ins with yourself. And if you're not able to do it for yourself, figuring out a way to find that help. And I think it's also important to understand when it comes to finding ways to heal yourself, there's not one direct way to do it. I think it's important to understand that there is multiple ways to heal or multiple ways to find help in order to genuinely heal and release what needs to be released in order for you to live an abundant life in many ways when it comes to emotions, when it comes to, money, when it comes to your physical health, living a abundant life. I think it's important to understand that you can eat healthy, you can work out all you want, but if you have so much baggage stored in you, when you have so much blockages within you from childhood wounds or from adult wounds or from adult trauma, then you'll still be completely stressed out. You'll still have anxiety attacks. You'll still go through depression. And I think it's important to understand that you can't just automatically erase anxiety or depression, but you can learn how to coexist with it when it does come up in your life, and you can come out of it quicker if you learn how to actually connect to your emotions and nurture your emotions and nurture yourself through whatever you are going through. But I think it's important to understand when it comes to connections, to understand in order to heal that connection, not all the time can you do it with the other person. Sometimes that person isn't meant to be in your life forever, even if they are somebody that's been in your life for a long time, or even if they are a family member or whatever the case may be. If it's something that is toxic and unhealthy for you and your space and your peace of mind and your sanity, then I think it's important to understand how to walk away and genuinely disconnect and genuinely forgive them and cut the cords and release their energy from your space and your energetic field, and decenter everything that you are holding on to within that connection, decentering their lack mentalities, decentering their conditional love, decentering holding on to a space that they may change or they have potential. I think it's important to understand to accept yourself for who you are and accept other people for who they are, and understanding the concept of you can't control anybody and you can only control yourself. You can only love yourself back to health. You can't control or love anybody into a space of respecting you or loving you back in return. And when it comes to that, also understanding that a part of healing and loving yourself unconditionally is being honest with yourself and in a nurturing way, but also straightforward as well. And also doing that with the people that you care about and that you love. That way your connections are not based off of illusions, or your connections are not based off of you being manipulated or manipulating someone else. And I think that's important to understand when you're trying to build healthy connections in your life, understanding where to place different people, and also understanding when it comes to cutting people off, understanding to take your time and being understanding with yourself throughout that time, because not all the time can you completely cut people off. Sometimes it takes time. Sometimes you have to deal with certain people until you're ready to take that next step to disconnect from them. And I think that's important to understand, to not beat yourself up for continuously, wanting somebody to be back in your life, or wanting somebody to be better for you, or wanting somebody to be healthier for you, I think it's important to be patient with yourself along the journey of healing and along the journey of disconnecting from people that you love, because it is a hard thing to disconnect from people that you love and cut them off completely because you understand that they are toxic for you, or because you understand that that relationship isn't going to get better, or you understand that someone is using you or not genuinely showing up for you the way that you deserve to be shown up for. And I also think it's important to understand that you don't have to explain to anyone why you cut off somebody else. If you are not venting and you just need somebody to talk to in order to get it off your chest of what has happened to you, but also understanding that that is what journals are for. Also, you don't necessarily need to talk to another individual unless it's somebody that you genuinely trust, or a therapist, or whatever the case may be. Also understanding that as well, but you don't have to explain to anybody why you chose to remove yourself or let somebody go. But I think it's important to understand that when it comes to healing, you have to allow yourself to go through the stages and allow yourself to feel your emotions and whatever comes up, not judging yourself, but just allowing yourself to feel it in order to genuinely come out on the other side of peace and a peace of mind as well. And also just being honest with yourself about who you are and who you are showing up in those different connections, and being honest with yourself about who people are to you as well, and not having rose-colored glasses on for other people or for yourself, or not having shades on for other people or yourself, genuinely seeing people for who they are and not projecting on them either, but allowing yourself to genuinely come from a space of taking yourself out of it and genuinely seeing how they are showing up in your life. And I think that's important to understand when it comes to connections and healing, and not holding on to expectations of what other people think your healing journey should look like. Just understanding what feels right to you and connecting to that, and just understanding that healing looks different for everybody, and healing is something that is linear, and it's not a destination either. Like you can feel like you're done completely healing from something, and years down the line it pops back up and it's something that still affects you in a certain way. And I think it's important to understand when that comes up and it is something that affects you in a certain way, to be patient with yourself in that time and allow yourself to feel whatever you need to feel, and not judge yourself for that thing triggering you again, or for that hurt to be still existent within your body or within your energy or within your emotions. And I think that's important to understand when it comes to, healing what has happened to you, or healing traumas, or healing connections as well. I think it's important to give yourself that same grace and that same compassion that you would give somebody else if you were, or that you would give a child, or that you would give somebody that you love. I think it's important to give yourself that same grace and that same compassion within your own healing journey. And also just understanding what you deserve and putting yourself in spaces and places to get that from yourself and get that from other people as well, or getting that from other opportunities as well. And also understanding when it comes to healing, you can't heal unless you are honest about what has happened to you. You can't heal unless you remember the hurt and the pain of what happened to you. And I know that some people forget their trauma as a protection mechanism, but I think it's important to understand when you understand that you have that, to understand triggers, and when something is triggering you, allowing yourself to feel into that trigger, or if you can't do it at that point in time, allowing yourself to write it down or put it in your phone in order to intentionally heal from it later, in order to sit down and genuinely intentionally heal from it later. And I think that's important to understand. You can't heal from your trauma if you don't know what to heal from. You can't heal from your trauma if you're wearing rose-colored glasses for the people that's in your life that actually hurt you. And I think it's important to understand that you can't heal from your trauma if you are still in a manipulating connection and you are acting as if that is not what that person is doing because you want them to be better or you want them to love you more. And I think that's why it's important to be honest with yourself and be honest with your situation, whether that be with family, whether that be with a romantic partner, whether that be with your friends, or even with yourself. If you're always making excuses for what they are doing to you, you won't ever understand how much of a toll is actually taking on you. And I think it's important to understand that before it gets to a point where it's completely too much for you to handle. And that's why I think it's important to cut people off or disconnect from people or take your time away from people. That way you can feel the difference between being around them or in being to yourself, and understanding whether those people are healthy for you or not. And I think that's important to understand, to take time to yourself and do check-ins with your emotions and do check-ins with the way you feel around people. Do you feel full of anxiety? Or when you walk away from them, do you feel like you have a lot of anxiety and depression just coming on you? And then the more time you spend alone, it lifts. And if it does, and I think it's important to understand that it may be the people that you are hanging around that is adding on to the unnecessary chaos in your life. And I think that's important to understand. And in order to heal from those connections, or in order to heal from those situations, you have to cut them off or allow yourself to distance yourself in order to really understand if that connection is the problem. Because sometimes it is you, and when you understand that it's you, when you do spend that time alone, when you understand that it's something going on with you, then you understand that that connection can be something that is just worked on from a space of both of y'all putting in effort and work in order to have a healthy connection together. And I think that's important to understand. But I think it's important to understand when it comes to healing, solitude is important. Allowing yourself to go to a space by yourself and check in with yourself is important. Because even if you do go through it even if you do go to a therapist, they're just going to give you the mechanisms and techniques in order to do the work on yourself. And I think that's important to understand, that you don't have to go to a therapist to really figure that out if you have time to connect to yourself. Or if you and that's why I think it's important to understand as well, there's different ways that you can heal, and there's different techniques in order to heal There's different things out there that you can try in order to understand what works best for you. There's meditation, there is also spiritual teachers and people that make videos about the exact thing that you are going through that can help you from a space of them understanding from life lessons. Or you can do EMT tapping, which is a different mechanism that kind of releases the energy out of your body. Or you can do yoga or whatever the case may be. I think it's just important to find what is and what works for you and stick to that until it doesn't work for you. And then if it doesn't work for you, find something else, and maybe it's something that you can go back to that can work again later on. But finding what works for you in order to release and let go of anxiety, chaos, and depression and energy that is stored in your body or in your space that you are holding on to, that's breaking you down internally or breaking you down physically. But yeah, I hope y'all like this video. Make sure that y'all like, comment, and subscribe. And this is Truth's Podcast with your host, True Car.